Today's intention is to reset and recharge when the time is needed. Many of us often get boggled with mind clutter, things that are out of our control, and we get frazzled. And obviously I'm speaking from experience. And what I realized this morning when I woke up and I did my breath work, and I try to think of what is an intention for today. It's coincidental I'm doing the show, is I have to reset and recharge. And I feel that this is a great way. It's simple. Just take a breath, say I'm reset, and then do some activity to charge yourself up. So like for me, I went for a nice swim. That's one of my favorite activities to recharge myself. And then I'm conquering the day like I am right here, right now with you.
Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome to Student of Intention, where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go. Hello, friends. Welcome to Student of Intention. I'm your host, Bobby Dysart. Student of Intention is a little corner of the podcasting world where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. We spark, strengthen, and support self-discovery. The person who just gave that wonderful intention was a good friend of mine named Ash Kumra, and I'm excited to welcome Ash on today's show. We'll get into his story of self-discovery a little bit, as well as an update on my own journey. But before we do, I want to just take a moment to recap Season 2. If you've been following along, Season 2 is dedicated to two things. One, highlighting the 5 buckets framework and book, which is a framework and book that served as a catalyst for my own journey of living with intention, and also this podcast, the newsletter, and the community. The second intention was to highlight the community members themselves by welcoming them onto the show. So we covered the relationship bucket with my friend Chelsea Bosley. We covered creativity with Monica Snyder, the health bucket with Ryan Kearney, learning with Alex Gafford, and then finally the work bucket with Adam Cleveland in the last show. And so now here in this final episode of Season 2, I think it's time to reset and recharge,
Nice.
As Ash said there in his intention. And what better way to do it than to hear a little bit about another community member going through his own recent self-discovery and his own recent journey of living with intention. Ash now is, I guess Ash has always been a content creator.
Right.
But most recently, he's become the host of a show called Ashburgers. It's a comedy podcast and vlog series. Ash is a lot of things. He's certainly all things entrepreneur. He's always been a person that's comfortable with a microphone on his hand, whether that's on stage at an event or at his radio show that he's done here in Orange County. And most importantly, he's a really, really good friend and one I trust fully. So thank you, Ash. Welcome to Student of Intention.
That was very nice of you, bro. Yeah, man. Happy to be here. I think this is like a third time on doing a podcast with you, because I did your other show, music show, and wasn't I on your original Student of Intention? Or is this just my second time? I can't even keep up.
It's all good. This is your second one.
Right.
First time on Student of Intention. But yeah, Ash and I connected on the Bobby Dysart music show.
Yeah.
Which is just another thing that we're still clicking away on what that will be.
Yeah.
Which is, at the end of the day, I think that's what I'm finding Student of Intention is about, is figuring ourselves out, figuring out the actions that reflect the people we want to be. And so, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm excited to get an update on you.
Yeah.
Ashburgers is a new shift.
Yeah,
it is an action in, I think, a big different direction.
Very different.
But maybe more of a direction that reflects the person that you are, the person that you want to be.
Instead of saying who I will be, I think it's just who I am. I think it's important to think like that.
That's right.
Because that's why I'm so easy to talk about it. I'm not gonna lie. You know how you hear a lot of times that you're your own worst enemy, your ego's the one that gets in the way and all that?
Yeah.
I should have done Asperger's a long time ago, just to be very blunt with you. But I kept battling things in my head. I kept battling like, oh, will this work? What will people think? This is totally, like you said, different from everything I do, right?
Well, before you jump into that, or maybe this is you talking about it, you made that distinction of I said who I want to be, you said who I am. I guess my argument against that language is who the heck knows?
That's true. And I've always say this, who you are will evolve as you get older. What I like now is different than 10 years ago, maybe 10 years from now. So I hear you, bro. I hear you.
But we work with what we've got. We live in the present and take action as we feel right. So tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so let's just recap for anyone who didn't see the music show, because I did briefly mention Asperger's too then. Basically, it's so funny. When I'm talking about Asperger's, I was all serious. That's only what Asperger's is.
That's right. I'll recap it. When I had you on the music show, you were pretty timid about talking about it. Yeah. And with regards to your background, I mentioned a little bit at the top of the show. But for the last, year and a half, you've been focused on building a mindfulness company. An app, right?
Yeah.
Called
Peak Mindful.
Peak Mindful, right? And you've always sort of hovered around the tech space, always sort of hovered around, always have been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so maybe what I heard in the music show when you're sort of resisting talking about Asperger's is it's definitely something different, right? It's comedy. Its main focus and purpose is video, is YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't say much on the show.
I didn't say much because I was still holding back. In fact, I revisited the audio, at least, from that interview on your Spotify channel, and oh my God, it was like this shield. I had this vest in front of me, and what I'm trying to tell you is, well, first off, everything happens for a reason, so I don't have a regret, okay? But I will say though that a couple things have happened recently that made me realize, what do I got to lose? One thing is, my birthday happened right after that show.
Yeah, you went up to San Francisco.
Yeah, and it was a big birthday. It was my 40th birthday. It wasn't like 30 or 20 or 35 or like 55.
I get it. I think 40 is universally recognized as a...
It's a big number, right? And so I that happened. Number two, I started to realize, this is the timeline. I started to realize around my 40th birthday, okay, I got one life to lose. I got to just do this. So I started to spend more time. And here's what happened. In this journey, this veil of BS behaviors and BS puffed up thoughts that I thought I should be based on what I think would work, based on society norms, started to go away. And when it started to go away, these emotions started to come. I started to get really deep with myself. And I have to thank the Peak Mindful experience, because one thing that was happening when I was building that Peak Mindful business was that I was starting to do more meditations, because the content was all about meditations and breath work. And so I started to do more of it now. And I was like, oh my God, I'm starting from ground zero all over again. And that was my biggest struggle, was if I do this project, I have to start from ground zero, because I've never done anything talking about mental health, spectrum stuff, comedy, and this stuff. So that was why I held back for so long. But around my 4th, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start to go in that journey. And so I started to go into that.
But tell me a little bit more about the emotions, though. Because I think we can all relate to that. We can all relate to that feeling of okay, something doesn't quite feel the way that I want it to feel, right? Particularly an occupational pursuit.
Yeah.
Something as big as starting a business, for sure. And then we also have these competing feelings of I'm interested in this other thing, or this maybe more reflects me.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that feel like in the moment, if you can remember?
Yeah.
And then B, how do you start to sort of lean into that other piece? What does that look like?
So the feeling that I had was regret. Regret meaning I made that comment to you. I think I made this comment a few minutes ago that, I should have done this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was my slip. That was me being a regretting guy again. And so regret came because I've always believed that I'm meant to do some content creative out of the box project like this. But I was like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Why didn't I do this 15 years ago? Why didn't I do this 5 years ago? Why not? So this deep regret. But here's what I learned. Regret is all mind-made because if it's how you think of things. So this is one thing I started to realize. If you start to see those past experiences as like learning experiences, then you shouldn't be regretful about anything. But trust me, I didn't think. But at my 40th, I started to get that idea. But I started to improve. But it was hard, bro. Like I went reclusive for a while. Like I just was holed up in my office, and like I would start to just read stuff and create stuff, but no one would see it because I wasn't ready yet for the world to see it. But something pivotal happened the last few weeks too.
But real quick, let's talk about regret.
Yeah, of course.
Regret's interesting. Regret is like, and I don't know if you agree, but I sense it's one of these words that like, it's just such a bad connotation. Everybody, like, it's very cliche to say, like, I have no regrets, right? But that's what everybody says. They have no regrets, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible, because what it sounds like to me, and I feel the same way, that regret actually can be a positive. You can actually have a regret. It's okay to admit, like, I regret not doing this sooner. Yeah. And I feel good that now I have the opportunity to go do that thing, right? Yes. Or I have at least the awareness that this is more important to me enough now that I want to go do it.
Right.
And in that sense, it's sort of okay to acknowledge, like, yeah, I wish I would have done this sooner. Is that fair to say about your situation?
Yeah. Straight up. No. Yeah. I think I can't speak for others, but I feel that at least there's some things that I've never had an issue with. Like I've never had an issue of, I'll find a business idea or I'll get a job or I'll make money. Those things don't bother me. I've always been able to just get into that or, but for me though, the regret thing, and I know some people are like, oh, don't worry about regret. That's hard for me to work on. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. Because you know what's happened? I'm being serious. And I said this briefly in your last episode or the music show with you. I puffed myself up and got so busy in this facade world trying to be something I'm not that these emotions of regret that I've had for like 10, 15 years were like repressed. And then around my 40th, or I should say most of 2021, I made that realization I'm not going to do all those things. It's not what I'm supposed to do. So because that vest is gone, all these emotions came to me. All these emotions of regret and even loneliness and like all these things that are around regret just came. And man, it has been a journey, but then I saw the light. I've read and heard that when you're the toughest pain is when you gain. Or was that, those things that like you really grow when like times are tough, not when things are just so cushioned?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that's a sign of growth, right?
Yeah.
You're in growth if maybe you're crying, if something doesn't feel right? If you're scared, if you have a lot of fear.
Then I should be 7 feet tall then. I've been, oh man, it's been a lot. And it's okay. That's why I'm talking about it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Okay. So you go through this period of growth and I can relate to that, man. Like I think in September when I started this version of my life, this version of self-discovery, I was definitely at a crossroads with myself. There was a ton of emotions, and it spanned more areas than work. Drinking was a really big thing for me. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should just throw away drinking forever. If I should just say, hey, this is who I am and indulge. Is there even possibility of like a happy medium? And I think there's other things related to myself that I sort of found myself at a crossroads with. There was the work thing too, of just always being driven by building other people's companies, their revenue engines. And, there's a whole different artistic side of me that I've sort of suppressed myself forever.
Yeah.
And I talk about it in the book. I've talked about it here. I write poetry, I write, short stories, etc. And just, never found an outlet for them or a need.
Yeah.
And then voila, September start leaning in, one little bit at a time, and fast forward, here we are. So I can relate to you on that. I'll talk a little bit more about where I've come and where I'm at now, because what I'm finding, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, is this is just going to keep happening. This is, we find a path, we find some momentum, and then we hit some challenges, and we find some growth, and then we find a path, and we find some momentum. So let's talk about you felt that emotion, you felt that regret. You're leaning into something new. That new thing, I think, is in the shape of work.
Yeah.
And it's called Ashburgers.
Yeah. Yeah. So around this time, and I remember I even talked to you about this. I'm like, if I'm going to do a show called Ashburgers, and just before everyone understands, Ashburgers is like, it's just my take on how I'm growing myself. It's a self-discovery of, look, I've acknowledged that I'm likely on the spectrum, which I'll get to in a sec. I'm all about trying to self-improve myself. But at the same time, I feel that things like comedy and entertainment and these things are ways that can bind us all together. I think it's something that heals us. I think we live in a time right now where we need a lot of healing. I need healing. I know others need healing. I feel a lot. Many people I meet. And so...
I mean, you got a lot of great stuff in there. You've got your own self-discovery, which looks like the form of acknowledging that you have this, I don't want to call it a condition.
Yeah, I call it a superpower. So
we'll call it a superpower.
So when someone hears the name Ashburgers, and it is a play on words, I have to give credit where it's due. A very good friend of mine. Here's the story. He saw often that I was watching comedy with him and other stuff, and he was like, "Hey, you're not processing these jokes. Like, I could tell you're faking it. Like, you might be on the spectrum, and I've been wanting to say this to you for a while. But you might be on the spectrum, and don't get offended." And at first, ego Ash, because this was before 2021. This was like in the fall, I think, when he said this to me of 2020. I was still like, "No, I'm good, man. No, dude, don't worry about it." But then he kept bringing up examples. He's just good at that, like picking at it. And then I just realized, wow, being on the spectrum isn't some society stigma. Because again, I was still thinking, oh, what are people going to think? Is this a condition or whatever? It's like, no, it's just an acknowledgement that I have a hyper-focused brain power on certain things. And I started to look into it, and I started to talk to, there's this whole group, this world called the Aspie world. It's crazy on YouTube.
The Aspie world?
Aspie world.
Aspie world.
ASPIE. That's like the cool lingo for it. There's like Aspie comedians, Aspie influencers, Aspie like community. It's really crazy, like how much they talk about being on the spectrum and how it's okay.
So this friend pointed this out to you.
Yeah.
And at first you resisted.
And a lot of other people pointed out too, because when I started to talk to people wanted to say, yeah, I kind of felt you are on the spectrum. I just didn't want to tell you to your face. I didn't want to hurt your feelings because I didn't know how you'd take it because of the society stigmas.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, long story short, I'm very happy because if I'm going to do a show called Ashburgers, which is a play on words, and it's my name, Ash. By the way, it's ASHBURGERS. I'm never going to have it. It's not with E. That's a little too crazy, and number two, the show will never make fun of anyone with any condition. If anyone's making fun of anyone, it's myself. I laugh at myself. It's all about me, like laughing at myself. If anyone gets clowned, I'm featuring people. I'm featuring comedy, witty conversations. My vlog, which is my daily journey. You could see here that I have my little thing. Like, I'm all in on this. It's very cool. It's a funny experience. But anyways, long story short, I'm not here to advocate that you have to go get tested for being on the spectrum. I'm just here to advocate that be okay with the fact that you might have some unusual gifts or superpowers, and find out. Don't hold back. And if you want to keep it on the down low, cool. You don't have to tell anyone. For me, doing a show like Ashburgers, I have to be full vulnerable. I have to be this person that I am. I can't be like, yeah, I have a show called Ashburgers. I'm not going to tell if I'm on the spectrum or not. Oh, I'm still just, you know what I mean? I got to be like all in. That's what I feel.
And I mean, I've also noticed I think for a long time, you've had this affinity for comedy.
Yeah,
But you're intentionally bringing in comedy into Ashburgers because I think you see that it sort of completes this superpower of yours?
It helped. Well, same story. Go back to that situation about, hey, I noticed you watch this comedy and you're not processing. He actually challenged me to watch more comedy every day. And he's like, start watching more comedy and see what happens. And I can say I process things a lot better. And so everyone understands, well, disclaimer, I'm not a therapist, psychologist, MD. So I want to be very clear when I say processing. For me, processing means I'm not afraid to say I don't understand something versus saying, oh, yeah, everything's good. But in secret in my head, like, I don't get it. That's what I'm saying for processing for me. But now when I watch comedy, it's like, I'm able to say, oh, I don't get it. And because I'm more vulnerable and acknowledging there's things I don't know, now when I watch comedy, I'm able to get it better. It's weird. I'm telling you, man, I when I said earlier that my biggest enemy has been myself, man, my toxic ego, man, for the last so many years, and I've had good times too, don't get me wrong, but it has held me back from doing this project that I'm meant to do.
Man, well, thank you for sharing. And it's just cool to watch, dude, as your
Thanks,
friend.
Brother.
And you're doing what I preach all the time, which is
Yeah.
you're taking action.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how weird, how challenging, something feels, how much resistance there may be. Actually, in many ways, I mean, Stephen Pressfield says the more resistance you have, the more you're meant to go do that thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
But the answer is always action. And you got yourself a studio, you painted it up.
Oh, yeah.
You put in all your different props and pictures and in short order really made it your own, man.
Thanks, man.
It's
Thanks,
a place
man.
of peace. It's a place of comedy and creativity, we'll say.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing that I nerd out on right now is seeing people lean into those curiosities, lean into those feelings, and just act upon them.
Oh.
So bravo.
Bravo to you, man. Do you remember that walk we had when I was that infamous walk before you did this whole thing? And I'm like, all right, man, how many months you got? Remember? Is your wife cool? I gave you those like prerequisites and you're like, I can do this for a little while. My wife wouldn't care because your wife's very successful on her own. And I was like, all right, you need to do this project. And you even came up with student of intention on that walk, or you were thinking about it.
No, you're exactly right. We were walking on Newport Shores, beach together, morning coffee walk, and I was confiding in you what to do with this book. So I had poured the manuscript out onto a Google Doc. I knew I had something there that meant a lot to me and something that in a framework that I had subscribed to, but I didn't know really where to go next, or if I did know, I was scared to go. And just talking through it with you, you sort of reaffirmed the confidence and support that I had in my life, and decided on, hey, let's create a newsletter. Let's keep digging through this well here of self-discovery, of living with intention, and do it in the form of a newsletter and podcast. And because it was broader, because it was something different outside the framework itself, he said, what do you think about the name Student of Intention? And you liked it.
It's a great name. I mean, look what's happened. People can't see. This logo is like... It's amazing. I mean, it's swag. I mean, if I was a shirt, I'd wear it. It's like, it would be good. I mean, one day, hopefully you sell it. It's a good shirt. I mean, merch or whatever. But I just remember, it's funny because that memory comes to my mind. And then I'm going to talk about the CES. Remember CES?
I remember CES because, dude, I'm happy you're bringing up CES because that was an interesting time for sure. So I want to know from your perspective.
Yeah, so this was like in Jan 2020. And I was really egoic Ash back then. So I'm not at all trying to like be preachy, okay? I was in my own world. I was like, oh, I'm going to get this projects and I'm going to crush it. All this stuff, right? And I don't really make that noise. I just liked in this situation. But I was like, and I remember talking to you and you were like, yeah, man, I got to go to this party, I got to do all these blah, blah, blah. And I remember seeing you that night at the YEC party.
That's right.
Okay. And I look at you now and I look at you then, you like lost half your weight. But it wasn't like, you're not like, you didn't lose weight like the skinny, like treadmill way. Like you got muscular and you got like, you're healthy. And I felt that the moment you've decided that your bigger purpose is to be a writer and a community builder, build student attention, etc. I feel like this light, this glow around you, you have more energy. Like you don't booze at all. And I'm not advocating everyone does not have to booze, but you and I aren't really into boozing. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying that. So, but yeah, don't you feel that when you lined your purpose, you just felt healthier inside and out?
Well, of course. I mean, I think to answer the question another way is to just think about, I haven't thought about that event. I haven't thought about that in a long time. That was CES February 2020, right? Las Vegas. And just this is the first time thinking of that memory in a long time. And just that just seems like a lifetime ago. And I know that when I talked to you on the phone and when I was trying to meet up with you, I did not intend to sound the way that you describe. But I think that's sort of the feedback I was getting a lot through life, was like I was constantly figuring out that I was showing up in ways that I didn't necessarily want to, or I didn't know that I was showing up.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't really connected with myself, as weird as that sounds. I had a lot of competing, priorities and competing paths. I just had a lot of uncertainty. I just didn't know what I was doing, frankly. And I was out there on a whim. I was trying to explore this other entrepreneurial opportunity of providing a sales engine for a offshore software development company. And that was, big splash event, go get connected with the right people and, see what happens. And man, it was, I think, just the combination of really not knowing that world, with going there without an agenda and sort of getting swallowed up by Las Vegas in my own way at that time. Like, it just kicked the crap out of me. And I can't imagine what I looked like at that YUC event. I've always been a guy that can, clean up, polish, slick his hair back, throw a suit on, whatever. And at the same time, man, I remember I didn't have a lot of sleep, and I just didn't have any passion or purpose for what I was doing. I was spending money to get there. I was hustling, I was hustling because I saw opportunity. And that was like, I think that was the beginning of the end of that sort of like, of just that journey of where I was like, man, like, how much longer can I do this? This doesn't feel right. And I'm just sort of going against my own grain. And yeah, man, now to think of, from September to now, what's happened, and don't get me wrong, new challenges exist. I just said this cycle is going to repeat itself, but I feel a lot closer to myself.
That's all that matters. And that's what I'm learning, is that you got to just, if you're dealing with the pain, or if it's gain, if it's everything's good, but you're getting close, you're connecting with yourself. Like, I'm being honest, like, I'm dealing with emotions. Since you asked me earlier, I'm just bringing this up again. I'm dealing with emotions like I suppressed for so long. I feel like I'm 5 years old learning what it means to cry or what it means to have regret. That's how deep in my own head I was. And I still have to remind myself. I feel like I was instead of an alcoholic, I was an egoholic. Ooh, that's a good one.
Is it?
Egoholic. But let's get back to you for a sec, because I thought about something. Obviously, we've talked a lot about, okay, we've dealt with a lot of stuff and we've grown and this and that. Let's talk about the present moment. As of this interview, as you're gearing up for season 3 of the show and your book's going to launch soon, what's worked now? Like, what did you cut out? And what are you like focused on now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the 5 buckets says it all, know, and what's happened recently that I'm just like stoked on is, I journal every morning, I do morning pages every morning. And lately I've been just saying, like, over and over again, thank you so much. I have so much gratitude for the 5 buckets framework just supplanting itself in my mind.
Nice.
'Cause that's the pinnacle of everything. at that retreat, for whatever reason, this idea seized me that I'm going to name intentions across relationships, creativity, health, learning, and work.
So cool.
And intentions in that moment, and still to this day, I think the smaller the better, right? They're like, I define them as a planned moment I want to experience, right? And it can be the tiniest, fragment of a memory or of a moment. But just planning to make that part of my life, prioritizing it, and then completing it, whatever it is, across those different areas, and then reflecting on it and saying, does that look like me or does that not look like me?
Yeah.
Right? If I didn't do it, then maybe it doesn't serve me. Maybe that's just really not, the version of me that I want to be. Or am I avoiding it because some past pain or some, bad habits that I have going on, or habits that don't serve me. I shouldn't even call them bad, right? So that's been it. I mean, that's that ability to, in affinity for, planning out small, specific moments that I want to experience, that I can say with fervor, I want this to be part of my life. And then doing that over and over again. I mean, I name intentions now every day. I used to, in the book, I talk about naming it every week. Now I name them every day. I do 5 a day.
I need to start doing that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna make that commitment now. Starting tomorrow, when I get up in the morning, I'm gonna start to do I'm gonna do that because I really enjoyed the reset recharge thing today.
That's right.
And I don't do the intentions every day. I'm not gonna lie. But I should.
Well, that's because you don't have the book yet. So we'll get you a copy
all right, cool.
when it's finished, and we'll get you in that practice. But outside of that, of course, like the what those things now are, right? You mentioned cutting out alcohol, which I think is another thing to bring up. I think there's 2 ways to look at like discovering yourself. You can sort of rip things away from your life, right? Like alcohol or smoking
or toxic people,
right? And sure, did I go through that phase? Yeah. But I would actually say that more than that, I've added things to my life.
Nice.
I call it, I think I talk about it in the book, addition by subtraction, or subtraction by way of addition. And, the other things will sort of fall off if you just add in the people that you want in your life, you add in the experiences you want in your life, you add in the habits that you want in a life. Like, you only have so much room to make you. And that's, that's definitely been me and something I'm going to continue to do.
That's cool. Yeah. I like that. Oh, that's beautiful, man. I think one thing I like about you too is that with this journey, I love this passion you have for building a community. This whole community you've built. I mean, I know you always talked about it. I want to build a community. I remember you were talking about that space you wanted to rent too, Newport. Remember that like space, a community space? Maybe you'll have it one day.
Someday, baby.
Someday. But what have you learned with the community building aspect? Because I remember that walk we had a few weeks ago, you, Van, and I, and you were so into it. And like, what have you, so I could tell it's like a party. Like, what have you learned? How's your mission improved, or what have you learned from building that community?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a few things. One, and with respect to that walk, I've learned that the community, I need to not rush to define what the community looks like.
Okay.
Right?
That's cool.
So I'm actually really grateful that you had that conversation the way that you did.
I always feel bad because I'm always picking at you and you're always resisting.
It is brutal. Some like to be totally fair.
And then I'll send you this long, like Sopranos dramatic audio voicemail.
That's right.
I'm a communicator. I'm not a writer, so I can't write you long text.
I want to say your voice note was like 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, Ash, I get it, brother.
Your wife probably thinks I'm crazy.
I get it.
You probably like, Ash is crazy.
But one, yeah. So I learned that I needed to not be in a rush to define what the community looks like. I've got 15 folks, we'll say, involved in the community in one way, shape, or form right now. And right now I don't have the exact way that I want to grow it or formalize it further. So I want to stay with where we're at.
Okay.
Which in that conversation, that's not the situation I was in. I was looking to scale it up. I was looking to give a lot of my time, attention, and finances to that.
And let me give some context, because
Sure.
I'm going to go back to what we had talked about offline right before this interview started. When I was telling you about why I'm all in on wanting to be a YouTube content creator and whatnot, okay? I'm a big believer now more than ever is that when you can find out what you like and what you have some decency at, or you're decently okay at, if not good at, then you should, and you have the ability to spend time on it every day, then do it. So for me, one of the reasons why I feel more free is because you even mentioned, like, I've always been creating content.
That's right.
So I was like, all right, if I'm going to create content, what can I do that is authentically me? And it's self-expression, self-growth, whether it's peak mindful or whether it's these ego things. Like, it was all around self-growth, like being a better entrepreneur, building community. And now it's like my own self-diagnosing myself, and people who are like me want to better themselves. But for me, I realized that I have to go all in on this YouTube, vlogging, podcasting kind of medium. And so what I was trying to tell you that day was, look, dude, you want to be a community builder? Dude, props. There's nothing wrong. We need that, especially post-COVID. But when I first met you and you were pitching me Student of Intention, it was like, what about your book? What about the thing, the words and the purpose that made you want to leave your full-time sales consulting and building stuff? Does this align with that? And so that's what I was trying to tell you that day. And then I tried to say in my 4-minute audio, but my point is that that's all I was trying to say. So I never will tell anyone ideas bad. I'm now telling people, is this what you really are meant to do? Because time is, I'm not saying don't be fearful of time, but just know that you have limited time every day to do the things. And if you can do things that matter, then why not just work on those things? And every day I have to work on that.
Right.
I can get distracted too. So
Yeah.
it's a reminder.
No, man, like I said, I appreciate it. 'Cause it definitely gave me that awareness of, like, maybe I don't want to go down the path in the way that the community path in the way that I was thinking at that time. But the second thing that I've learned is the people that are involved are really, really helpful, and they get it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to turn them away, and I don't necessarily want to, misfocus or go down, a distracted path. Right. So I need to sort of figure those things out, but, they've really been a big part of it, and they will continue. The people that are involved in there now will continue to be a big part of it. The third thing that I've learned, I think that just kind of dovetails off of that, is like part of my own journey of self-discovery is bringing it out in others, right? And being in service of others. And so that includes the community, that includes folks that read the newsletter, folks that listen to this pod, folks that just see me once in a while on social, whether it be LinkedIn or Instagram. I know that what I really want to do in this moment is I want to spark, strengthen, and support self-discovery however someone interacts with me, how little someone interacts with me. And whether it's them just hearing about my story or picking up my book or listening to other folks' stories on this pod, literally whatever it is, as long as it gives them just enough awareness, context, etc., to take a little action, discover a new path, and then ultimately align with the universe. Like, that's what I'm focused on.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah.
So speaking of Student of Intention, let's go back to the book now. You just mentioned that the book will come out any day now. What have you learned from writing this book? Because when we went on that walk to where you are now, yeah, you had a draft, you had a manuscript, but you've obviously, sounds like you've evolved it, and what has changed? What has been the same with the book?
I've learned a lot. I think another one thing that I want to commit to that I don't want to be distracted by, I want to write just a quick ebook that I'll maybe even just give it away for free on how to write and publish and sell a book.
Good.
Because it's a process, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And one that I think I went through different phases of saying like, oh, this is a lot easier than I expected. And then, oh, this is way harder than I expected. And, all the way, I think at one point I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This sucks. This is brutal. But it's, I think it's a great experience because it serves as like sort of a mini hero's journey amongst our big hero's journey. Just like I'm sure you experienced with creating Peak Mindful. Yeah. Right. Creating Ashburgers, right? It's just another thing that we can pour ourselves into. The cool thing about a book is it literally has a beginning, middle, and end. So it's a contained, at least when you're writing it, it's a contained reflection of a full-fledged journey. That's so funny. One of my interviews I did this week. So as of this conversation, when this airs, the Ashburgers YouTube channel just got launched, and I've now, been starting to do tapings for my podcast. So Ashburgers has two parts. It has a daily vlog and it has a podcast. And the podcast is me with my two hosts and interviews with comedian entertainer types. I interviewed this week Doug Ellen. He created the show Entourage. You ever watch Entourage? Of course I watch Entourage, baby. Wow. Yeah, it was awesome. By the way, his favorite TV show, he said this on air, Sopranos! Just saying, someone that creative. So wow, that's you're welcome for introducing you to that. I'm just kidding. No, but Doug's also from a different age. He's 52, so for him, Sopranos was a hip show at that time. You know what I mean? So that's why it's still a hip show. Still a hip show. That's true. Mike dropped on the Sopranos. You did good. Thank you. Anyhow, it's funny because we obviously asked him all these questions about Entourage, because do you create an entourage? And I saw that he still is Entourage guy, but his mind is also now onto other things. Yeah. It was like a part of his life, That's like right. It's interesting. He's all about wanting to he like loves the podcasting world. Like he has two podcasts. It's crazy. And that's a whole other conversation. But the point is that I saw what you just said. It clicked in my head. Someone super creative like a Doug Ellen who's like, yeah, Entourage was me. I wrote it for a time which I saw as I experienced Hollywood through the eyes of Vince and all. But I'm also beyond that now to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. So it's cool that you said that. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's how it's served me is it was a commitment, be it a challenging commitment, but also an achievable commitment. We're not talking about a 90,000 word novel here. Yeah. We're talking about a 15,000 word, personal growth book and workbook. And so it gave me, I think, just enough of a project to allow me to lean into that artistic side of my person that I've been avoiding and sort of suppressing for a long time, but also get through it, figure it out, now publish it. And now the next thing is sell it, bring it to the market, get people, again, on their own journey of self-discovery and do it through the means that I just referenced, right? This show and everything else. What have been some things you've learned? Let's talk about the podcast for sex. You've season 2, which means you've done... How many interviews have you done total for Student of Intention? I don't know. At least 16, maybe more. Okay. And then I think 9 music shows. Okay, so you've done a total of 25 podcast episodes from that walk that we had when you're like, all right, I'm going to go work on this. That's right. What have you learned about yourself from these interviews? Because that will help you with season 3 or whatever you decide to do with the whole overall vision. What have I learned? I've learned I can do it. I mean, first and foremost, right? Like I remember walking into this studio, my first pod, I was a guest on Chris's pod and I was nervous as shit. I think my voice even cracked. So, I've definitely learned that I can do it, with repetition, with consistency. And I've also learned that people say yes. When you ask people to do things for you, a lot of them want to help you out. Yeah. A lot of them want to say yes. So early on, I had a ton of tension just asking, these are people that are in Orange County that are friends, asking Mick, asking Carrie, asking some of these people.
I really like that Mick interview. Carrie was good, of course, but Mick interview,
100%.
Wow, that hit me.
Yeah, so it was really cool to learn that, like, dude, people want to help you out, and I'm getting, I think, more and more comfortable asking folks to do this and having conversation with these folks that I know are going to help other people. So that's another thing I learned. I think lastly is just always improve, like always keep reaching higher for different guests, again, in the spirit of people say yes, want to help, like, okay, maybe I'll go ask Rich Roll to be on the podcast. Maybe I'll go ask Stephen Pressfield.
Dude, let me tell you something. This is the greatest time right now. People are accessible.
Yeah.
I didn't know Doug Ellen. Mm-hmm. I just reached out to him on social.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, whoever your person you want, it's a numbers game. Hit out 10 of them and you'll get one of them.
Yeah.
Or maybe you hit up 100, you'll get one of them. It's just a patience game. But people have been never more accessible. That's one of the positive things I'll say about social media. I know there's a lot of bad things to talk about, but I do like the fact that, like, they're saying the dating word. I slid in the DM and I just DM a bunch of people. That's all I do.
Slid into the DM. That is the strategy.
For whatever reason, or not for whatever reason, but a lot of these very influential people, influencers, they look at their Instagram, and it is what it is. So just if you want to reach Rich Roll, hound him on Instagram if that's your key.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's worth noting that the number one most important thing I've learned, and this is hard for a person that indexes on action. I'm the person that if somebody says, hey, I want to jump out of an airplane, okay, go find the airplane. Like, let's do this. If we want to write a book, cool. Grab some paper, let's start writing.
Yeah.
Right? That is important, and patience is important.
Yeah.
There's no rushing the process of writing a book, no rushing the process of putting together a newsletter, podcast. There's no rushing the process of self-discovery. You can do more action. You can continue to show up. You can continue to learn more. Do as much as you can to sort of help the process along. But I've got to remain patient. Things get wacky and things get uncomfortable in a bad way when I set expectations and then I don't meet those expectations. When I'm like trying to rush things because I'm like, I just expect it to be better than it is now.
Yeah.
Unfoundedly.
That's deep, man.
And I'm grateful for that too. I told you I was really grateful for the 5 buckets. Like, that realization just keeps coming up. The other thing I'm just really grateful for lately is the patience that I seem to have with myself and with this process. Because I've definitely not always been that guy. Definitely not always been the patient man.
What are your habits every day that keep you so grounded or focused on these thinkings?
Oh man, I feel like I'm beating a dead record here with the dead horse, I should say, with the 5 buckets. But morning pages are a must. Shout to Chris Decker, studio captain, for bringing that back into my world. That's 3 pages of unprompted writing every single morning. I got to get outside and move. Beach runs, garage workouts, whatever it takes. Got to get outside and move.
Diet wise, what are you doing?
Diet's great. Still, I'd say 85% vegan, 15% not.
Nice.
Don't really drink. I think I've had 3 glasses of wine in 2021.
Wow.
At 2 different weddings. So
it's weird when you drink it after so long. I went to Houston, for this. I mentioned I went to Texas 2 weeks ago for a family wedding. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 different situations where I drank alcohol. I wanted to see what my body would be like. I had scotch for the first time in like 2 years. And it was like good scotch. It was like Blue Label. I had a cup. Mm. The next day, I didn't have a hangover, but I felt just off. Back in the day, I can have a couple glasses of scotch, I'd be fine. And another night, I had 2 glasses of wine, red wine, a cab. And it was a wedding celebration. I just want to see how I would be. it was so weird for my body. And again, I'm not advocating everyone has to live their life and do what they need to do, but I'm just saying that when you get yourself off something and that isn't really healthy for you and you jump back on it just to try it out, it was weird how my body processed. I was actually proud of myself. That means my body's so resistant to like toxicity.
Well, I mean, you're talking about 0 to 120 when you're talking about scotch. So
yeah,
you know,
it was interesting.
Maybe just chill on like.
I'm not drinking again. I just want to see what it was like.
Cool.
Like, I might drink socially, but yeah, I know what you're saying though.
But yeah, brother. I mean, reading as much as I can, and then doing as much creative work. You know, I'm trying to be at least 3-4 hours a day is like the target of in sort of creator mode. And
Good.
What that looks like is, writing, potting, planning, inviting, connecting, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Building plans for consulting clients too. I think that's the latest update too that I'm really excited about is for the last, I guess since I've started this thing, since September, I've looked at, okay, there's student of intention Bobby, and then there's sales entrepreneur Bobby. Cool. And those are two very different human beings. And I think that's just ridiculous now. I didn't think it was ridiculous before, but now I'm like, I'm not those two separate people.
You're one.
I am one.
That's the key.
And so that I'm realizing how to actually bring those worlds bring together those two sides of me in the form of an offer for software companies, early stage startups, companies that I tend to work with. So be on the lookout. Student of intention, consulting engagements, events, they're on the horizon.
Can't wait,
in
dude.
very short order.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. This was fun.
This was fun.
Appreciate you. Last minute, I can't thank you enough, dude. I mean, I think the other thing in full transparency with the community and the listeners today, like today was one of those moments where I had a lot of work creep up over, and a lot of family stuff creep up over the weekend. Had family stuff, work stuff, sort of hijacked the beginning of my week, and I came in here sort of just resistant, almost like, hey, I don't have to do a pod today.
Yeah.
I don't need to do it. I can punt till next week. And I was like, fuck that, dude. Fuck that. Action is always the answer. Don't overthink it. Go and do the pod. And that being said, I don't know if I come here and do it if I don't know that I have Ash Kumra that can come in here and jump in with me and give me a little update on Ashburgers.
Thanks, man.
Tease a little bit of update out of me and my journey here on Student of Intention.
Well, this was fun, man.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Hey, it's Bobby. Thanks for listening to today's show. For more, follow Student of Intention at www.studentofintention.com. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.